This video is about solving absolute value equations. And to get started with some notes, we want to recall some important things about absolute value. Let's take the example where we just have the absolute value of x, and let's just set it equal to 2 for a moment. Now, with a basic understanding of absolute value, we know that if I were to somehow cover up what's inside the absolute value symbol here with a curtain so we can't see it, you could then ask the question, well, what could be behind the curtain that would actually make it equal to 2? Now, given absolute value definition and what it means, we should understand two options here. We know the absolute value of 2 is 2, but there's another option, and that is that the absolute value of negative 2 is 2. So we actually have two different options that could be within the absolute value symbol. Now that will give us a way to approach absolute value equations. And so for some general steps, we'll follow these. First, we'll end up isolating the absolute value. Sometimes it has other terms with it. We'll make sure the absolute value is alone first. And then secondly, we're going to split the absolute value into two non-absolute value equations and then just solve each of them. So let's take a look at an example here, the first one being solve. We have the absolute value of 4x minus 7 plus 1 equals 3. Now let's follow our two simple steps. First, we want to get this absolute value alone, and to do that we should subtract 1 from both sides. That will give us the absolute value of 4x minus 7 is equal to, on the right side we have now 3 minus 1, which is 2. And so if we apply the same concept we discovered, which is that what's in the absolute value could be both 2 or negative 2, then we can simply split this absolute value equation into two options that are non-absolute value. Namely, we could have 4x minus 7, which is what's in the absolute value, could be equal to positive 2, or 4x minus 7 could be equal to negative 2. And then each of these can be solved with the classic equation solving methods of just getting x alone. We'll have 4x equals 9 in one of the options. If I divide by 4 on both sides, I'll get x equals 9/4. So that's one possible solution. And in the other equation, if I add 7 to both sides, I'll have 4x equals 5, positive 5. And then dividing by 4 will give me x equals 5/4. And so we see in this case we have two solutions of this absolute value equation. And this general process of splitting and solving works with many various forms of these absolute value equations.